All right, so let's talk a little bit about the demonstration environment that will be used for the demos in the rest of the modules in this course. I've set up an Active Directory domain controller using the domain contoso-ned.xyz. Also included in that domain are two Windows 10 workstations that have Office 2016 installed on them. Now, I've actually deployed all of this within Azure, but it is possible to deploy these as virtual machines on your workstation or whatever makes sense. Additionally, I've set up an Azure Active Directory tenant, and as you can imagine, I've set up Azure AD Connect to synchronize the local Active Directory with Azure Active Directory, and I've registered that domain publicly. Azure Information Protection is enabled on that Azure Active Directory tenant, so it's using that tenant to provide that service. I've also provisioned an Azure Key Vault that I'm going to use to store a master key in a bring your own key type scenario. Now, Azure Information Protection is integrated with an Office 365 subscription that I've set up that includes both Exchange Online and I've enabled information rights management for SharePoint Online. So all of that is set up and ready to go. If you wanted to set this up yourself, a lot of these are available as free trials to sign up for, with the exception of some of the Azure consumption that I'm doing. But again, you could run those as virtual machines on a local workstation if you needed to. So that's the environment that our scenario is going to take place in. Let's talk a little bit about the scenario itself. In our scenario, you are an administrator at Contoso Limited. Within Contoso Limited, there's a bunch of different groups, but there's two primary groups that we're going to be working with. The first is human resources, and as you can imagine, human resources has to deal with a lot of sensitive type documents, so using Azure Information Protection makes a lot of sense for them. The other group is sales, and as you can imagine, sales is responsible for sending a lot of documents and data outside of the company, so being able to retain a certain level of control and automatically apply policies to the documents they're sending out could be very important. Now, within human resources, the person we're going to be working with is Jason Gibson. Within sales, the person that we're going to be working with is Elsie Vasquez, so they'll be used in the demonstrations in future modules. One of the scenarios we're going to be looking at is Contoso had a business unit called the Life Settlement Group. They're being split off as their own company, which means that there's a bunch of things that are going to need to change, such as removing access to certain documents and making some alterations to the tenant itself. All of the users that are part of the Life Settlement Group are in the LSI group, and one of those users is Marisol Garber, so that's the person we're going to be using for scenarios involving the Life Settlement Group. The other main scenario we're going to be dealing with is Contoso Limited recently acquired a Canadian-based company called Greyjay. Since Greyjay exists in Canada, Contoso Limited is now going to be dealing with Canadian personally identifiable information documents. And so they need to be able to detect those document types and take the appropriate action to secure the information inside. All of the users that are part of the Greyjay acquisition are in the Greyjay group, and the main person that we're going to be dealing with in the demonstrations is Joshua McGee. So I'm going to flip over to the Azure portal to show you some of these groups and the users. Alright, so we're logged into the Azure portal, and I'm going to go into Azure Active Directory. Within Azure Active Directory, you can see that we're logged into the contoso-ned.xyz tenant. If we go to the groups, we can see that there's a number of groups already set up. So as I mentioned, there's a Greyjay group, there's an HR group, there's a sales group, and there's a life settlements group. I've also created a group called demo users, and if we go into demo users and view the members, the 4 users we're going to be dealing with throughout the demonstration are included within here.